Hello everybody, my name is Endermedic and welcome to a different type of video. So I play a lot of multiplayer games on this channel, right? Fallout 76, Red Dead 2 and such. So I thought it would be a good idea to make a compilation of all the Enders that I've played as my custom characters. So the timeline will start with Red Dead and then it'll end with Fallout 76, Far Cry New Dawn and such. So without further ado, let's get into the video. This brings us to the first Ender in our family tree. He was a normal guy until he was sent to the gallows wrongly by Jeremiah Shaw, Teddy Brown, and Amos Lansing. He was broken out on his way to the gallows by Horley. He was an assistant to Mrs. Leclerc. He then helped Mrs. Leclerc and Horley track down the men responsible for her husband's death. He also managed to help out a marshal with Alfredo Montez, who was a criminal, and managed to save the marshal's and a sheriff's life. He was also known for using 2 silver Schofield revolvers and wore a red and white striped poncho with a black gun belt and golden buckle. He rode a white stallion and he also wore a leather vest and black shirt. He later had a family and settled down, and that brings us to the next Ender in the family tree. So the next Enders in our family tree here is the ones that fought during World War II. Now something of note is that many of the Enders fought during the war, so keep that in mind as we walk through this time. Some of the Enders were tankies, so they drove tanks. Others in the war were infantry and officers, and some were pilots. Now the information that we have is very limited, and the Enders that we have known to existed during this time is around 10 to 15 Enders. So we don't know where all of them went, and we don't know where all of their families went. Some might have fought in the war, but might have changed their names or something like that. So we don't know exactly if there was only 10 to 15 that fought in the war. But what we do know is that one of them fought in the Battle of Saipan, pictured here. He was flying a Catalina bomber, and he provided vital air support during the raid over Saipan. But this will take us to the next Enders in our timeline. So the next 2 Enders we will be discussing were criminals in Los Santos. The brother was the first one to arrive, and he started up a CEO contract with SecuroServe. And then he expanded his business with dealing weapons to Agent 14 in the IAA, Lon John Teabag, and other ventures. So then this led to him working with the IAA. So his first assignment was to help Avon Hertz protect the IAA. His next assignment was to take out a Russian submarine on the coast of Los Santos. During the raid on the submarine, Avon and his Clifford AI turned on him and his crew and set the submarine to self-destruct. After, he and the IAA had to work together in order to stop Avon from launching a nuclear warhead and starting World War III. So after he blew Avon to bits, he destroyed Clifford, he later settled down and had a family. Now, it is unknown whether he continued his business after ever having a family, but his sister, on the other hand, came to Los Santos after her brother single-handedly saved the world. So she started her own contract with SecuroServe. She started making her own money and expanding her own business. So this Ender was the mayor of a city called Ender Hills. And this was a very large city with major industrial power compared to other cities. Had relatively clean water compared to other metropolitan cities. Had green energy and much more, as well as a large import and export service. Now, this Ender was extremely proud of his city, and as you can see now, the residential area that this city had was ginormous. So this city was able to hold many residents that were proud to call this Ender their mayor. So this next Ender, we have no footage for him. There may be some archival footage, but we weren't able to find it. Anyways, this Ender was a part of an elite strike team named Warface. And he went on many missions around the globe to help secure global peace. However, he was a combat medic, as many in World War II were. He was known for using an automatic jackhammer shotgun and a burst fire pistol, as well as frag grenades and a gas mask. However, this Ender met an unfortunate fate at the hands of Blackwood mercenary force. As he bravely held the line against the enemy force, he was eventually gunned down. But this will take us to the next Ender in our timeline. So this is the next Ender in our tree. He is from Hope County, Montana. Now, after Joseph Seed launched his bomb, humankind went underground, and years later, they came up to this bright, beautiful landscape. Now, the highwaymen exist in Hope County, Montana, and this Ender was an enforcer for a Thomas Rush Clovis, and when Rush was captured, he helped rescue them. However, Rush was eventually killed. So, as a revenge plot, they wanted to take down the highwaymen. They eventually met New Eden, which is a cult that Joseph Seed runs after the bombs fall. Now, because he ate an apple from the Eden tree, he gained powers to become more powerful and quieter than any human being. He took out the leaders of the highwaymen, Mickey and Lowe, and eventually maybe had kids of his own. We're not sure, because there's no evidence that he did have kids, but all evidence points to no. But let's take a break and head over to our next Ender. So this Ender existed about around the same time as the last one. Instead, he was in Country Roads, West Virginia, and he was a Vault 76 participant, and no experiment happened in 76, so after 25 years, he was let loose into the wild. Or let's just say the wild was let loose to him, because he was able to rip and tear apart the monsters of West Virginia. He had tons of supplies and had many variations of power armor that helped him on his adventure across West Virginia. So this Ender was able to find many pre-war factions and post-war factions. He was able to find the remnants of the Responders and the Brotherhood of Steel, as well as Raiders and the Enclave. And now he had to prove himself to the Enclave to become a general in their army. Well, robot army. But he did not know that there was a larger plot going on in Washington, D.C. But it seems that this chapter of the Enclave was completely wiped out and replaced by robots. And this chapter of the Enclave seems much nicer than the chapters on the Washington and places in New Vegas. Now, it is unknown at what time this specific ender existed, because there are not enough modern technologies in order for it to be in the future, but there are too many semi-modern technologies that don't definitively put this in the past. So all we found are relics of his buildings, a cave, a large bridge, farms, just all of that. And we have no idea what time he existed, but we do know that he was extremely strong and able to carry more than tons, literal tons of trees. And that's really all we know about him, because he's got portal technology, but that's more magic than any technology, really. But all we know is that this ender existed at a point and died or disappeared or still alive for all we know, because we don't know if he died, if he lived on. We don't even know how old he was when we found the farms and his home. So all we know is that this medic existed and he was extremely strong. That's all we know.